ESPN College Game Day is going back to an SEC matchup this weekend in Austin, Texas, as the Texas Longhorns have yet another huge matchup, and this time it is with the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart. WWE Hall of Famer John Bradshaw Layfield and massive Texas Longhorn fan will join us on this edition of the Stingray Show to break down this game from the Texas Longhorn perspective. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. Guys, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get the Stingray Show rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show. And Heath, we have another WWE Hall of Famer about to join us to talk a little bit of college football and especially the Longhorns of Texas.
You know, Stephen, last year when we talked to our guest, he was almost dead accurate on his prediction. Yeah. And he's got a bit of a football history himself. He's probably played more football than everybody listening.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to bring on the longest reigning SmackDown TV champion and world heavyweight champion and massive Texas Longhorn fan. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome back to the Stingray Show our good friend, John Bradshaw Layfield. John, how are things going with you? And let me also say this. The guy in the open who compared Texas to a stripper is a reporter from the Texas A&M Aggies, the other rival for Texas.
That makes sense then, because I was going to ask who the hell that was that compared Texas to a stripper.
Yes.
But if it's a Texas Aggie, I get it. They those guys hate each other, and they should hate each other. That's a fun rivalry. I'm glad the rivalry's back, by the way. That was one of the dumbest things they ever did when Texas goes off and A&M gets mad. Texas wants to show their power, and it's just a pissing contest. And these guys stopped one of the biggest rivalries in the state. It really hurt the state. It was terrible. These guys should be playing each other. I'm glad they are again this year.
Yes. JBL, before we get going, where are you joining us today? Where in the world are you?
Bethesda, Maryland. Moved here just before COVID from Bermuda, and I'm here right beside D.C., which need a shower because I'm surrounded by politicians.
Now, I know everyone listening to us in the car and on the podcast, they can't see us, obviously, but you've got some fun stuff behind you. What in the world are all those things behind you?
Well, the guy right over my right shoulder is that's a terracotta warrior. I went to Xi'an, China one year when I was with WWE. We finished up in Vancouver. I used my miles to fly to China just because I wanted to see China. I wanted to see the terracotta warriors. Those terracotta warriors, there's, 10,000 of these statues there. They're all about 6.5, 7 foot tall, all with different faces, everything. It's one of the greatest archaeological finds, since the pyramids. and they were selling replicas of the terracotta warriors. So that's a replica of the main general that's back in battle formation that was buried underneath to protect the old, I guess, Emperor Ming, I guess it was. That when they buried him, I got to meet the guy because it was in the winter. It was freezing cold. There were no tourists there. I was the only white person there. So, they had a few Asian tourists that were there, but I was the only person obviously that come from overseas because it wasn't tourist season. Right. But it was the only time I had a chance to go. So I got to meet the guy who was signing the book, and I said, hey, they take care of him. And I mean, this is the biggest archaeological find since the pyramids. And they said, oh, yeah, they took care of him. So I looked it up because I realized that didn't sound right. They paid him like $7 or something for his property. And then now he signs autographs. And I asked him to sign the book, and he took his time, and he made the most beautiful signature, in Chinese. I have no idea what it says, but it was just beautiful the way he did it. Took such pride in writing it. Of course, I tipped him like $20 at the time, which is 3 times what he got for his land. But now he makes more money for, off signing autographs, for books for tourists than he did farming in China. So now the other stuff I got a sword collection from different places around the world. I got a sword I got in Morocco that I got arrested in Spain for, got thrown into a Spanish jail. I've got swords from Iraq that I snuck back in the country. I've got swords from Japan that I bought when I signed a bigger deal with the Japanese company. I like collecting swords. The Mayan calendar there I got down in Mexico. That's how I keep up with Gerald Briscoe's birthday. And of course, above me over my left shoulder, I got an old San Antonio Riders helmet that somebody gave to me. And I got the old WWE Championship belt up there. And the giraffe I got in Shaka Zulu land down in South Africa with Barry Windham. The didgeridoo I got in Australia when I was in tour over there. So just kind of got a collection of a bunch of stuff from all over the world.
And with the statue there, do you call the general by his name, or do you give him a fun name like Bud?
No, just General Xion, as I call him. Now, I don't know what his real name was. I named him, after the town, but it took me about 7 months to get him. I gave him my credit card, and, this is back in like 1997 or something. It was a while back, and I just knew they were going to stiff me on this stuff. And the guy said, President Clinton was here and just bought 34 pieces. And at the time, he had just gone to that Lewinsky scandal. And I said, do you really want to use our president to establish your credibility right now? And I got taxed in like Shanghai. I got taxed in Tokyo. I got taxed in LA. Not much, like $40 or $50. The whole statue was like $700 or something. But I got it like 7 months later in this massive crate. But it probably weighs 300 or 400 pounds.
Wow. This will be my last question. We'll get to the real stuff. How do you sneak a sword into the country?
From the one I got in Iraq, or the one I got in Morocco that I got arrested for? I got arrested in Spain because I brought a sword back from Morocco to Spain. The guy told me it was legal. It wasn't legal. And they were about to arrest me. This is post 9/11. It's like I'm getting arrested for sneaking dirty uranium into the country. I'm getting a weapons charge for sneaking this freaking sword in. I paid like $100 for it. It's like a cheap sword. Right. And finally, somebody recognized me, and I waved to him, and he come in. He said, "What are you here for?" He goes, "Are you JBL?" And I said, "Yeah." And at the time, I'm a bad guy, so I'm throwing out every good guy name there is. I go, "Yeah, I'm friends with The Rock. I'm friends with Undertaker, and I'm really friends with him." And so this guy finally talks to this guy. They're throwing me in jail. The guy takes my arrest record, wads it up, throws it in the trash, and gives me the sword. And I said, I don't want the freaking sword. I'm not walking out of a police station with the illegal sword. You can't even have a knife over there. Oh. And the guy said, just take it. It's okay. I stopped at the first hotel, went to the concierge, and I said, I don't care if you send this to the moon. Get it out of my possession. I said, I prefer you send it to me, but please get it away from me. And the guy took my address and stuff. I paid him some money. And by the time I got home, there was my sword.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I was going to a Spanish jail until that guy recognized me for that stupid sword. I went through customs on the ferry from Morocco to Spain, and I put the sword on the conveyor belt. Think how dumb that is. And I'm sitting there thinking, this can't be right. The two Moroccan guys didn't even look at me. I said, well, I guess it is. So now I'm going into Spanish customs. I put the sword on the conveyor belt. Same thing. I pick it up and I go, you got to be kidding me. I guess the guy he told me that you could do it. It was legal. I said, okay, well, I guess it is. I walk outside the police station and get arrested. Taken into a Spanish police station. They're throwing me in jail for this stupid sword that I've got right back here.
Wow.
You have earned your money back telling that story. How many times have you told that story?
Oh my goodness! The whole sword was $100. It was the same thing. There were no tourists there. I got a picture with him with it was a snake charmer. A guy put a snake on me and all this stuff, and not a poisonous one. He had, he did the stuff for the poisonous one. I guess it was poisonous. He said it was. It looked like a cobra, and then he sold me the sword for $100. So yeah, I got more than got my money out of this. This is one of the best stories ever.
Yeah, it is. That's worth $100.
100%. Yes, it's worth $100 easily.
Right.
The guy had written the entire arrest record. It was all in Spanish, and I don't speak enough Spanish to understand very much what he was saying. And it was like a whole page of stuff. I tried to bribe him. I tried to do everything I could to get that police station. They finally let my wife in, and she walks in. She goes, "What are they doing?" I said, "They're arresting me for that sword." She said, "I told you not to." I said, "Now's not the time to tell
That's
me."
Right. That's right. JBL, we're all married to the same woman.
So, JBL, hold that thought because we were up against our first break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into SEC football. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back.
Attention, deer hunters and gardeners. Fall is here, and it's time to gear up with everything you need from the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. We've got you covered with top quality feeds, deer flock products, deer attractants, shooting houses, and moultrie feeders. Whether you're in it for the trophy or the thrill, we have everything you need to bring home the big one this season. And for all you lawn and garden enthusiasts, boost your outdoor space with the power of high yield and Fertiloom products. From lush lawns to thriving veggie gardens, our lawn and garden solutions give you maximum results. Stop by today at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport or call 205-339-8181. Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op, your partner for every season.
Heath, I'm going to keep it recording.
That's fine.
Dude, that was awesome, JBL.
Yeah, I was that close to going to jail. I mean, that guy walked by. He would walk by on the sidewalk outside, and I could see he recognized me as he walked by, and I waved to him, and he came in. He goes, "Are you JBL?" I mean, I'd just been a heel all throughout their country. I'd done all this horrible shit. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But immediately I start dropping like Undertaker, Rock, Stone Cold. I start dropping every name I can. I said, they're really buddies of mine. You're fans of theirs, right? They go, he goes, "Oh, yeah, I love those guys. Love those guys." I was like, yeah. Then he's the one that got me off.
That's funny. Well, I do got to ask this. Maybe I should save this for the show. What's another time that you've used your wrestling celebrity privilege to get in or out of a situation?
I was in Malawi, and they were throwing me out of the country because they thought I was a reporter. I'm Malawi. I was in Zimbabwe. And they thought I was doing something on Mugabe. Because when they let me in, I flew from Rwanda to Zimbabwe, and I was I'm the only white person on the plane. It's just like there's like 6 or 7 people on this plane. They're all Africans from some African country, and
right.
I'm the only obviously person not from there. Go through customs. Everybody's nice as they can be to me. Last question was, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a TV commentator." And the guy phoned somebody. Next thing you know, I'm in a room with all these people with machine guns and stuff. And they didn't point them at me or anything. They never threatened me. But they were going to not let me in the country. And I'm trying to explain to them that I'm not here to do a report on Mugabe. I'm not a news guy. I said I'm a wrestler doing wrestling commentary. And they're not listening to me. And finally, the same thing happened in Spain. A guy walks by, and I could tell he recognized me. And I said, "This is my only chance of staying," because I don't know where they're sending me.
Right.
They weren't mean to me, and they weren't threatening me, but they were not going to let me in the country. And the guy walks in, and he goes, "Man, you look like JBL, just older." And I said, "I ain't that fucking old." And he goes, "Are you JBL?" And I'm literally like, do I look that old? I'm like half pissed off now. I don't care if I leave the country. Am I really that old? So the guy goes, "You're JBL?" I go, "Yeah." I goes, "What are you in here for?" I said, "Well, I told him I was a TV commentator." He goes, "Oh my God, don't do that." I go, "How do I know not to do that?"
Right.
So the guy turns and tells him, he says, "Hey, this guy's not a news guy. He's was a wrestling with WWE." And immediately everything changed. They got up, took pictures with me, escorted me outside. The charity that I was there to work with Hoops for Hope was waiting for me. They had no idea what had happened, why it took me so long. And now I'm being escorted out by all the security and everybody. They were all happy and shook my hand and and everything.
But I'll share this story with you. I was in San Diego for a while back in '97, and we used to go down to Tijuana every spare chance we got. And we would buy Cuban cigars and bring them back. And I think you could bring back like 5 or 6. Well, I had a buddy of mine. We're college kids. He's like, I'm getting this whole box. I'm like, dude, you can't bring the whole box. He's like, I'm going to get the whole box. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I got like my 5 or 6 in my pocket, cargo pants. And so anyway, we're coming back across customs. And so anything they find illegal, they put it on the conveyor belt. And, or excuse me, anything that you have, they put it on the conveyor belt. Well, this guy took it, Border Patrol took it and put it under the counter. And my buddy, and he's a doctor now, he said, hey, can I see those one last time? And he goes, why? He goes, I just want to smell them. He goes, all right. So my buddy takes the cigar box, opens it up, and stares the guy down and starts breaking them in half. And he got to the third one. He goes, wait, I'll half them with you. He goes, okay. And I was like, how did you know that? And he said he put everything else on that belt. He put that under the counter. I knew he was keeping that for himself.
Yeah.
And so I said, so you got 9 cigars and he got 9. He goes, yeah. I'm like, well, all right.
We went to Bahamas one time. I'm going this weekend, but we went down with a friend of ours who worked on Wall Street, and he had a decent amount of money. He flew private, so we're flying private with him. And we get down there, and the people recognize me. They're very nice, and you're not supposed to bring any alcohol in the country, at least in large quantities. My wife brought all this wine with her for my buddy's house, as a gift. Because the guy, he flew us on his plane and stuff. He was very nice. And when she went to put that in her bag, all these bottles of wine rolled across the floor.
Oh, my gosh.
So they just asked us, do you have any alcohol? And my wife says no. And so, because they never search you. And the guy said, what's that? My wife said, oh, that's just wine. And the guy goes, okay. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh,
all right. I'm going to pull it. I'm going to bring us back, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is JBL, a.k.a. John Bradshaw Layfield. And JBL, before the break, we were talking about all things off camera, about your life and doing stuff and what you had behind you. Now let's get into what we all love talking about, and that is college football. JBL, please give us your thoughts on your Texas Longhorns so far as they have transitioned from the Big 12 into the SEC, please.
Well, you talk about college football. I lived over in Europe for a couple of years, and one thing the Europeans had that they kind of held over us a little bit was they had these great rivalries with England and France and Germany and all the countries over there. They'd show up, and they kind of would rib me a little bit about, you guys don't have anything like that. Yes, we do. It's called college football.
That's right.
And you have 100,000 people in stadiums. You have states that are biggest countries that are all, 100% bought into this. When Texas entered the SEC, I didn't think it was a mistake. I thought it was probably the right thing to do, but I didn't think they'd be able to compete because they weren't an SEC team. Oklahoma wasn't either. I think Sark has really changed that, or the Texas program has changed it. Whoever's changed it, they've changed it. They went from being able to score 50 points a game and giving up 40 to eliminating, they shut down Oklahoma last week. Now, Oklahoma, I don't think is that good, but they haven't won a game by less than 19 points this year. And the reason is because they've changed their program to an SEC program. And if you don't know the SEC, you don't understand how drastic of a change that is. I mean, those guys in the SEC, they are grown men up front. I looked the other day about the last 20 national champions. I think 17 of them have been from the South. Once you adding, I think Clemson was one of the ones that you'd add in. So 16 of basically SEC champions. It's insane, the record of the SEC. It's a different level of football. And Texas, been very surprised and very happy, of course, 'cause I'm a fan of Texas, that they've been able to change their team into an SEC team.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, JBL, I do have to ask you, when you traveled around the country with the WWF and the WWE, who were some coaches that you were able to meet either backstage or at the events?
We met, there's always the joke about Steve Spurrier about what's the difference between God and Steve Spurrier. God never thought he was Steve Spurrier. Of course, he's one of the rivals of Ron Simmons in Florida State. Yeah. So, I've always had this kind of animosity toward Spurrier only because I rooted against him. He was the nicest man. I see why he was such a great recruiter. I was at a golf charity event one time, and they told me, said, we got a real treat for you. You're playing with Barry Switzer. And I said, was Saddam Hussein busy?
Right.
I said, that's the only person that more hated in Texas right now than this guy that was running Iraq. And he was the nicest man. I see why he's such a great recruiter. It was the most pleasant 4 hours. Such a nice man. As you can imagine, story after story, just a fun guy. You see why he's such a great recruiter. Same with Spurrier. You meet these guys, they have to be good recruiters. So they have to have good personality skills. And most of the time when we get to meet them, it's in a fun situation. It's not where they're working. It's where maybe I'm working or something, but not them. And so I've never run into a coach that I thought that's a bad guy. Every one of them I look at, I see why that guy is such a good program and why he's such a great recruiter.
JBL, to follow that up, we've probably had 5 to 6 dozen Steve Spurrier stories told on this show. And I would tell you that probably more than half of them, probably 3/4 of them have taken place on a golf course. Was golf ever talked about, or was there golf ever involved with your Steve Spurrier run-in?
No, he came. We were in South Carolina. He came into a WWE show, came backstage. I think his family was with him, I believe, and he was sitting there just having beer after beer. Now, he was not drunk or anything like that. I don't want to even insinuate that, but he's sitting there having beer. Most celebrities, when they're on camera, they'll hide their beer if they're drinking it. Steve would just sit there and drink it. Coach Spurrier, I didn't call him Steve. He would sit there and just drink it. He didn't care. He didn't care about nothing. Just the nicest guy. He sat backstage and talked to people about sports and just had fun.
Yeah, he shows up to NASCAR races with his shirt off and his beer as well. He did that as a coach.
He's just a fun guy.
He is.
He's such a good recruiter.
So, JBL, I do have to ask you about this. Your good friend and tag team partner, Ron Simmons, is a massive Seminole fan because he played there. JBL, how is he doing with the Seminoles being 1-5 this season?
And are you riveting hard every week, week in, week out?
Oh, my goodness. I won't even text him during the game. The first couple games I text him, and Florida State looked so bad. He's a 3-time All-American. Bobby Bowden said he was the greatest player he ever coached. And, Ron changed Florida State. He is Florida State, as much as Deion Sanders, Charlie Ward, all these guys.
Right.
It's shocking. They had a 9.5 win total was their win total on the books for the season. Within 3 games, they had already lost that 9.5 win total. And it's not like they were close. I mean, they got destroyed up front. They had those great defensive linemen, or they said they were great. Those guys couldn't stop nothing. I mean, they're getting run on like crazy. They're getting pushed around. I mean, Ron was in shock. I was texting him during the first couple games, and he was just in shock about how bad they were. The quarterback is nothing that they promised. I mean, it was just – I don't know how the coach makes it through the year. This is one of the biggest disappointments in college football.
Yes.
John, when I watch football, and we had Kane on, we had Mayor Glenn Jacobs on earlier this week.
Yeah.
But when I asked Glenn, I said, when you watch football, I always watch offensive line and defensive line. Do you do the same? Are you an offensive line, defensive line, or do you follow the ball? What do you watch when you watch a football game?
I try to, when you're watching film, you try to start, at the center of the action, with the ball and kind of expand from there. I'm not good enough to be able to watch the whole field. Plus, they don't really film the whole field. It's not like you've got the film version that you have as a coach. But yes, I watch the front 7 and the defense in the front 5. I usually look to see if they're in man coverage. Just to see what they are, and because if they are, that frees up a linebacker usually to blitz, and that changes. And I like to see how many people they're rushing, because that impacts a football game so much. When you can get a rush off 4 people, it changes the game completely. That's the problem right now with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, you could, if you've given up a lot of yardage in passing, you can figure out ways to cover that. You can change coverages, you can change zones, you can change demand, you can try to get to the quarterback. But if you're getting pushed around up front, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
And that's what Florida State is. I mean, they're just getting pushed around up front. And if that's the case, your season's done. You can't correct that. There's nothing you can do to correct that if you're getting beat at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Now, did you watch the upset of the season so far, Vanderbilt defeating Alabama? Did you watch any of that game?
I did, and I watched last week also that was it South Carolina that missed the 2-point conversion and then got the onside kicked. I mean, I don't know what's going on in Tuscaloosa. I mean, they beat Georgia. They put up almost 100 points on Georgia. They look amazing, and then slip up on Vanderbilt, which, by the way, Texas has Georgia and then Vanderbilt the next week also. So it's very quite coincidental. I'm shocked. I mean, you guys will know better than me. What has happened to Alabama? Is it a matter of a letdown, or was the game with Georgia a fluke? One of them's a fluke. Either the game with Georgia's a fluke or the game with Vanderbilt's a fluke. One of them's got to be a fluke.
Right.
That's a great take. That's actually a really good take. Well, I was going to ask you with that Vanderbilt game, I went back and watched it, and then I sat there and I was like, Bama's being pushed around here on offense and defense, and I will say they were out of position before the snap, and that's what Vanderbilt tries to do. They do try to do that to you. A lot of misdirection. But I was like, is this a discipline problem that we're not getting lined up? We're trying to react and not reading before the play? Or is it, hey, I'm too good, I can react, and they just got caught, not being prepared?
I think it's a matter of not being prepared. I think. Because they've got great talent there in Alabama. There's no reason that Alabama should have been pushed around like that. There's no reason Florida State should be pushed around like that. I'm not going to blame the NIL, but some of these kids come in and they get these big money and they just don't think they have to work anymore. Look, by the way, separate issue. I'm all for the kids getting paid. I don't think the transfer portal is correct. I don't think you should be able to transfer every semester to a different school. I think there's no loyalty. Kids aren't going to graduate college that way. I think it's bad for college football. The transfer portal needs to be fixed, not necessarily the money. But sometimes these kids come in and they're getting all this money and first time in their life, and I understand that, but their work ethic has gone out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what's happened to Florida State. These kids are these $1 million babies, and they're getting shoved around. And I think that's kind of what happened with Bama. They manhandled Georgia, and then they show up and they think, okay, we're going to, like they used to say, we're going to throw our jocks on the field, and they're going to run from us. That ain't going to – when it doesn't happen, you got a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, JBL, when we brought you on, you talked just a little bit about the renewed rivalry of the Aggies and the Longhorns. Talk a little bit more in depth about that rivalry and how many of those games have you actually attended?
Only a couple. I was in college, we went down to the games when I was, especially my redshirt year, and then after I got out, but I've always been working on the weekend, so I've never been to a lot of big games. So I went down to Texas, and I didn't have any money, and I found somebody who sold me some tickets. And as I walked to the gate, somebody offered me twice the amount of money, so I sold them. And I did it over and over a couple of times, and I got enough money. I finally just went to a sports bar and watched it on TV because I had money finally to buy a drink. And plus, drinking age was 19 back then, so it was different. I was either 19 or 20, whatever it was. And so I haven't been to a ton of them, but I've watched all of them. I love them. I mean, that's one of the biggest. It's funny, people in Texas, they really draw sides between A&M and Texas. It really is a divergence. I grew up in West Texas, so I don't really have a loyalty to either team. I'll root for both of them when they play. I'm kind of more of a Texas fan, but I went to Abilene Christian. Nobody has a rivalry with Abilene Christian. So
right,
I'm pretty
Methodist,
safe.
right?
Yeah. But man, I am so happy the rivalry's back. It is a terrific rivalry in the state of Texas. I'm surprised Jimbo Fisher didn't work out there. I think he's a good coach. I don't know what happened, but they have a pretty good team again this year. If Texas gets past Georgia, unless there's a slip up, the only thing left that's concerning until the conference championship and the playoffs is A&M.
Right.
JBL, here's something fun to think about. This is probably not going to happen. If I had any amount of money to bet, I would bet it all on this. Right now, if the season ended, the number one team in the SEC is the Texas Aggies. It's Texas A&M. Number 2 is Texas. Could you imagine if we finished the season with that rivalry game and then the next week we see them in Atlanta playing for the SEC championship? What would the state of Texas do? What would those fan bases do knowing that they're going to be in a 2-week fight?
Well,
I'll put the wrestling pun in there. A Texas Tornado Death Match for 2 weeks.
We already think we control everything. Texas doesn't need any help to brag. And we brag about everything anyway, whether we should or not. That is such an interesting point, because if you play them in the conference finals and then you have to play them in the playoffs, how do you play the conference finals?
Right.
It's very interesting to see what you're going to have to. Do you play based upon the fact that you're playing them again later because you know you will be? Because if the road will go through them if you make it to the championship after that.
I just thought about this. There's a possible 3 times they could meet. The last game of the year, Atlanta for the SEC championship, and then in the college football playoff. Now, I doubt that will ever happen ever.
Right.
But I just thought you could see them play 3 times in 3 straight games. That would just be nasty. America would shut down. I know
it would be. And the question, I guess the conference championship would be the most important game, right? Because that gets you the bye in the playoffs. Gets you the bye. You don't want to play one of these, top 12 teams in the country if you don't have to, and you can take the bye. So the most important game is the conference championship. So, how do you play the first game? I think it's very interesting coaching situation. Do you keep things back knowing that you're playing again in 7 days? And right. I think the answer is probably yes.
So JBL,
but what an incredible scenario if that's what happens. I
know
that would be something else.
So JBL, that you love talking smack about the Sooners of Oklahoma. Texas just beat down Oklahoma. Go ahead and speak your piece about the Oklahoma Sooners.
And did you rub it into good old JR's face?
No, I didn't. And the reason I didn't, JR doesn't take it funny. And JR doesn't rub it in my face. JR doesn't rub it in my face either. So I don't, JR doesn't not like ribbing like that. So I don't ever do it out of respect, because he doesn't do it either, in fairness. Now, Briscoe, of course, he hates OU as much as I do. He went to Oklahoma State. But if OU beats Texas, he'll take credit for it. So, yes, I did have a lot of fun spiking the football with beating OU, but I never rub it in JR's face. In fact, I went to a game with him one time, and he had a car, limo that he had to pick us up. And after the game, Texas lost. He goes, "Well, you want to go have a drink?" And I said, "Okay, I need one." I went to the team hotel. There's Bob Stoops. I go, "Is this the team hotel?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm not coming to the team hotel. I got a cab and left."
Wow,
funny.
And he was just excited, and I don't blame him. He's a huge Sooner fan. He's good friends with Bob Stoops, and so I don't blame him. We have a fun rivalry, but there's not a lot of ribbon that goes back and forth because Jared takes his football very, very seriously.
Yes.
I mentioned this on the show last week. I had a college roommate of mine. I grew up with this guy. We grew up in the same town. His dad played football in Oklahoma, and he used to always make the joke that he goes, "I didn't know the Longhorns were the Longhorns to my junior year. I always thought they were the Unicorns because of the salute they were giving us, the one finger salute to us Oklahoma kids." And we always laughed about that. But that rivalry, you grew up in Texas, correct?
Oh, yeah.
When did you learn? When's the first time that you learned, Oklahoma's a bad word? The Sooner is just a nasty thing you don't say. How old were you, and when did you start realizing that rivalry?
About 8 or 10. I was born in '66, so around whenever Earl Campbell was playing, and Darrell Royal was coaching. Switzer. It was just such a good time. It was such a wonderful time. The whole world was chanting "Run, Earl, run!" Earl Campbell, who was a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Inexplicable to try to explain to people how good Earl Campbell was. And to watch him play against Oklahoma, man, what passion. Ricky Williams, when he played against them, it's just a different game. Baker Mayfield's got this great record against Texas. He's from Texas. It's a huge game. If you beat Oklahoma, your career's made in Texas. There's really not a lot else you need to do. You need to win a few games. You need to beat A&M, but you got to beat Oklahoma. And growing up, that was the game of the year for us. Besides the Cowboys are pretty good in the 70s as well, but it was all Texas. I mean, you learn pretty quick that Oklahoma is the most evil place in the world, and that you hope that they all die.
Ha! Fun stuff.
So, JBL, hold that thought because we were up against another break. And when we come back, we are going to get your prediction on the Longhorns of Texas and the Georgia Bulldogs. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with John Bradshaw Layfield, a.k.a. JBL. Dude, great stuff.
Good stuff. I'm ready.
Oh my God, Skandar Akbar and Dick Murdoch used to call Jim Ross and Bill Watts anytime Oklahoma would lose. God, it was great. They'd torture JR. I mean, torture JR. I've never seen an entire company root against a university like any company would root against Oklahoma because of JR. Because JR took it so seriously. It was so serious that it was just. Everybody rooted against him just to see JR try to not sell it.
Right. That's hilarious. That's fun stuff. That's fun. So, is there any other fans as far as, I'm just reaching for anything here. Was there a major North Carolina basketball fan, or was there any other sport that in the company that oh yeah, he's big into it? Because it just seems like everyone's picking on JR on this, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. JR's the nicest guy. And he got besieged by all sides about Oklahoma. I mean, all sides. Everybody knew what Oklahoma did every single week. But I don't think there's another team out there or another celebrities, superstar, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
WWE talent or anything that anybody had such an allegiance to like JR had to Oklahoma.
Right.
Wow.
And JBL, I've seen The Undertaker on ESPN Game Day at a couple of Texas events. How big of a Texas fan is The Undertaker?
Oh, massive. Absolutely massive fan. Yeah, he loves football. He loves sports. And he's a huge Texas fan. I mean, massive Texas fan. That is all legit. He and Conahy, I mean, that's all legit. I mean, those guys, that's not for show. JR's not for show either. I mean, that's them. He's a massive Texas fan.
Okay.
Undertaker ever played any football? Obviously, he had to.
No, he played basketball and was a preseason All-American, and a coach said something to him one day, and he walked off and quit and became a pro wrestler.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where did he play?
I don't remember. I don't know if it was a JUCO or a college. I can't remember. But he was a preseason All-American coming back, and the coach smartened off to him about something. And he just walked off the court and went to pro wrestling. Wow. He's a terrific athlete.
Right.
Wow. Fun stuff.
All right. I'm going to bring us back, okay?
Let's do it.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is JBL, a.k.a. John Bradshaw Layfield, the longest reigning SmackDown champion in TV history. And JBL, you mentioned it briefly in the last segment about the Dallas Cowboys. We know that you are a massive Longhorn fan, but how big of a Cowboys fan are you?
Are you kidding me? I grew up with Staubach. I mean, I grew up with, Dorsett. I mean, I grew up, you name it, Bob Lilly. I mean, every one of these guys, I could tell you that at one time I could tell you the names and the numbers of the entire 72 Cowboys that won the Super Bowl. Wow. I had their poster on my wall when I was a kid. I memorized the whole team. Back then you didn't have a million sports channels. Didn't even have ESPN. So all we got was Dallas Cowboys. That's all we got. And, of course, Staubach was such an incredible person, an incredible star, and Landry was just Tom Landry. So everybody in Texas was a Cowboy fan. Then along came Bum Phillips, and a lot of people, wanted to root for Earl down there and, Love You Blue. And people were kind of split, but nobody were rooting against the Cowboys. They were just rooting also for the Oilers. But a huge Cowboy fan. I'm incredibly disappointed with what they've been since about '96. It's not since this, last couple of years. I mean, Dak Prescott's is 2-5 in the playoffs. They haven't been to the Super Bowl since '96. I mean, it's going on, 30 years. I mean, it's insane. If you don't make the playoffs or you have problems, you can blame some bad luck for a year. If you don't do it for a few years, you can blame the quarterback or the coach or something. But if you don't do it for 30, that's a systemic issue.
Right.
And there's something wrong in Dallas, and it needs to be fixed. And obviously, it's Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones has done everything right outside of the lines. He's built a great stadium. He's got great sponsorships. But the football has been, since Jimmy Johnson left, Barry Switzer came in and, won a game. Great coach. Don't take anything away from Barry Switzer, but that was Jimmy Johnson's team. They haven't done anything since.
Right.
JBL, did you ever read the book Boys Will Be Boys, talking about those Cowboys teams? I mean, it was way over the top, but it's kind of funny how you mentioned they despised Jimmy Johnson. All the players did. They despised him. They couldn't stand him. And when they said Barry Switzer came, they said it was such a relief that we actually enjoyed playing football because Barry didn't care what we did, and we didn't care what Barry said. We just did what we wanted to. And I thought it was kind of funny how that kind of played out. But with all that being said, with the Cowboys, and touching that, I'm with you. I think it's clearly ownership with the Cowboys and why they're not winning. But did you ever have any run-ins over your time in years, charity events, whatever, with Jimmy Johnson? Or you already talked about Barry Switzer, but what about Tom Landry?
No, I met Tom Landry's son one time when I played with the San Antonio Riders, which is a big three. And Landry did, I did shake Tom Landry's hand when he came out there. Came out because his son was part of the ownership or something. He was that was.
Yeah, he was.
That was hard to even talk to him. Roger Staubach, I'll tell you a funny story. I was in Aspen at a conference, the Forsman Little Conference, and I look around and I just met Carlos Slim, who was the richest man in the world at the time. And no disrespect, but that doesn't blow me away. That's not my gig. And I was talking to him and everything. And I turned around and there's Roger Staubach, and I couldn't say a word. Couldn't say a word. I just met the richest man in the world, literally seconds before. And I turned, there's Roger Staubach, and I couldn't say a word. And he wanted to go out to dinner because he wanted to talk to my wife about something she had written about Financial Report or something like that. So I went to dinner with Staubach. It was so uncomfortable because all I wanted to talk to him about was about the shovel pass to Preston Pearson, the bomb to Drew Pearson. And I'm sitting there and I can't say anything because I'm thinking, don't be an idiot. Don't be an idiot. That's Roger Staubach. It's Roger Staubach. And my wife said, I've never seen you speechless. And I said, that's the one guy. It's like a Catholic kid meeting the Pope. It's the one guy that gets me speechless, Roger Staubach. And he was the nicest man, just as nice as you could possibly imagine, and he's incredibly successful, sold his company for $500 million. He's legit, man. It was so much fun to be able to meet him. I met Jerry Jones one time. I just got back from Iraq, and Snoop Dogg, I believe Snoop Dogg had thrown like a Christmas party or something. And my wife says, hey, we're going to a Christmas party. I said, I just got back from Iraq. And she goes, well, it's Snoop Dogg's party. I said, we're going. I don't know what we're going. So we get there and they treat us fantastic. In a VIP room downstairs and everything. And Jerry Jones walks in and it was in a tuxedo and surrounded by his entourage. And it was fun to me. It was fun to meet Mr. Jones. He's a very charming man.
Right.
Oh, I bet.
I'm surprised he was at Snoop Dogg's Christmas party, but that's the last thing I expected was to see Jerry Jones at Snoop Dogg's Christmas party, but I've met him there.
JB, I've got to ask, what does a Snoop Dogg Christmas party smell like?
Just like what you'd think.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, thank goodness they had a bunch of snacks there in the VIP room because everybody had the munchies.
So, JBL, talking about meeting people, there is a living legend in the state of Texas who unfortunately was done really wrong, in my opinion. I'm talking about the late, great Mike Leach. JBL, did you ever have the opportunity to meet the Pirate?
No, I wish I would have. I almost went to Texas Tech. I went there on a recruiting visit. My parents wanted me to go to Abilene Christian, and I'm glad I did. But Mike was way before Mike. I think Spike Dykes, who had coached at Oklahoma, Odessa Permian, was the coach there at that point. But man, what a great job he did. And I could read it. I thought he got done completely wrong by Texas Tech. He did a wonderful job there. And I don't know if they wanted it out of the contract or what. That was a miscarriage of justice, I thought. What a great coach and what a great personality. You ask him a question about something and he'll give you an answer. It may be the craziest thing you've ever heard, but he'll give you an answer. He's a smart guy. His story is so cool, how he literally went as a graduate assistant from different places trying to learn the game. And he learned the game. He learned it. I mean, in fact, he'd go for it at 4th and 10 on his own 20 sometimes. It was a little insane. But that's the way he played the game. That's why you love the guy.
Yeah, you really – you knew a lot of people admired him, but when he passed, you kind of figured out then he was America's coach.
Yeah.
The outpouring respect from the NFL and from high school teams and all the colleges wearing stickers on their helmets and things. You're like, wow, this guy, he really touched a lot of people. But he did change the game.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
He changed the game, and he changed the game by study, which is really impressive. He specifically sought out to try to learn the game, to make the game better, or at least learn how to win the game. And it's really a great tale of somebody just through hard work learning the game.
Yeah. And
by the way, I'll tell you another thing. I just wrote a foreword for a book, something you guys will like. Jim Londos was the greatest draw in wrestling history in the 1930s, late 1920s. And Steve Johnson just wrote a book about him, and it's coming out soon. You guys as wrestling fans will love this. The guy who changed the game completely. He's the greatest draw in wrestling history. But Jim Londo's story is similar to Mike Leach, a guy who just worked very hard and finally made it through incredibly hard work and became the biggest draw in America as a Greek immigrant when you had segregation and baseball was, whites only, at least for Major League Baseball because of Kennesaw Mountain Landis. And you had this xenophobic treatment against immigrants. It's really an incredible story.
Wow. Hey,
so, JBL, my final 2 questions for you are this. If you would give us a breakdown of the 3rd Saturday in October between Tennessee and Alabama this weekend up on Rocky Top. JBL, how do you see that matchup going between the Volunteers and the Crimson Tide of Alabama?
I think it's all a matter of which Crimson Tide shows up. I don't think anybody knows. I mean, the Crimson Tide that handled Georgia, especially in the first half, they were freaking awesome. They look like the best team in the country. And you're sitting there looking at them going, that team is insane. Then they'd slip up the next 2 weeks. And so I don't know which team shows up. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. We got some great games this weekend. I think Tennessee and Alabama is going to be a heck of a game. I think Tennessee probably wins it at home. I just based on the fact that I'm not sure which Alabama team shows up. That being said, they're still Alabama.
Yes.
I mean, they're still Alabama. And if they show up and say, you know what, we're not losing to a rival, they may not. It's going to be a very interesting game.
So, JBL, have you had the opportunity to witness a game at Neyland?
No, never.
Okay.
I'd love to.
Right.
It's fun. I've been about a half dozen times. They're all great.
I've never always worked on the weekend, so I've never had a chance to go to just a ton of games. I remember one time when Vince Young was playing quarterback for Texas, and Animal's kid Laurinaitis was playing for Ohio State. We had a Saturday afternoon show, and Joe Laurinaitis, Animal, says, "Hey, you want to go to the game tonight?" And I said, "I'm not going to sit there and listen to 100,000 fans chant Texas sucks for 3 hours." So I go to a sports bar, and I got my cowboy hat on because I went straight from the wrestling event. Had my cowboy hat on, and I am getting, besieged by Ohio State fans. They're just everything. Texas is fake. Texas is phony. Overrated. They're all chanting in a sports bar, overrated at one point. And obviously it's all at me. Right. And then Vince Young does Vince Young things, and I became the most obnoxious person you've ever seen in your life after that.
That's excellent.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, fun question for you. We see a dynamic quarterback in Quinn Ewers. We see an electric young quarterback in Arch Manning. Who's your favorite so far?
I think Ewers. And I think it was very good that Ewers had this game last week because he did not look very good, in my opinion. He had some open receivers that he just missed, and I think that comes from just some rust. So I think it really helps Texas to have this game with Oklahoma first, as far as Quentin Ewers playing. You don't want that. You don't want that rust coming against Georgia. Fortunately, they overmatched against Oklahoma, and so that they could deal with some real issues that Ewers was having at the beginning that wasn't that Heisman level play that he's used to. I think Ewers will probably play very well this week. I'm a little bit more fan of Ewers being in there. I think Manning played well. He threw some picks during his time. I think Manning's the real deal. I think Texas is incredibly fortunate. We have potentially the two best quarterbacks in the country. On the same roster.
So, JBL, we've talked all around it. Now let's get to it. Saturday night, 6:30, ABC, Austin, Texas. Number 5, Georgia, invades Austin to take on number 1, Texas. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite. JBL, how do you see the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart going up against Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns?
Well, there's zero chance I'm not going to pick Texas. Zero chance I'm not going to pick Texas. But I think it's justified. I think Texas is probably the better team. They're both great coaches. Man, Kirby Smart is – that guy I love that guy, man. Something about these coaches that coached under Saban. I mean, this is really remarkable. These are two Saban proteges that come out, and this is awesome. I think this is really cool that you've got these two great teams, these two great coaches. It should be a heck of a game. This game worries me more than anything. The problem is if Texas ends up getting the playoffs, I think Georgia does too, they might face them again. So I'm more worried about the second matchup than I am the first one. But I think Texas, thank God they're in Texas and not Georgia. I think Texas wins the game. Basically what the books are saying is by a three-point line, they're saying it's a toss-up, which I completely agree with. Give the home field advantage to Texas. Man, they're going to be rocking down there in Austin. That's going to be a fun event. I can't wait to watch this. I'll be in the Bahamas with Ron Simmons doing beers for APA down there at an event. But we're gonna watch this game.
Okay. I was about to ask you if you were going to be the guest picker on game day.
No. I'm going to be in. I'd love to be. I think that's the best show on television, man. Good Lord, that's good. Adding Nick Saban to that is just freaking gold.
It is.
Yes.
I mean, that's the best show on television. Pat McAfee and adding last year. Those guys are just awesome. I mean, what a great show that they have. What a franchise they have.
JB, I got to ask this. Did you say that you're going to be having beers with your APA partner in the Bahamas watching this game? Did I hear that correct?
You did. We're actually you won't believe this. We're going to the Bahamas. There's a wrestling event down there. Mark Henry is the world's strongest man, big University of Texas Longhorn.
Yeah, we had him on the show.
Mark Henry, wonderful human being, is putting on an event down there. He's at least the booker of it. He's bringing me and Ron down. We're going to have beers with APAs with fans. So we're going to have beers with APA and fans and sit there and BS and answer questions or tell stories or whatever the heck they want us to do. Hopefully we'll get done. Hopefully it get done in time to watch the Texas and Georgia game.
Now, if it ever happens to any of our listeners, if they see you here, Homestead or International, and they happen to see you and Rondell Simmons sitting in a bar having a beer, either watching a game or not, is it okay to approach you guys in a non-charity event fashion to ask to sit down and have a beer with you, or are you just running them off?
No, we're not running them off. No, we enjoy being around people. And especially if we're sitting in an atmosphere like that watching a game, we're in a real good mood at that point watching a game. Unless it's Abilene Christian doesn't make the national television, so we can't watch that. We can't see them. But if Florida State's not on and not losing or something, then it's usually a great event for us. So we usually don't care who wins or loses, but we love watching football together.
I didn't know I had things missing on my bucket list, but I think I just added one, Stephen. I'd like to sit down with APA and have just a beer.
Well, we're going to do it in the Bahamas. We actually kind of got a rolling show we're going to do around the country, I think, and just have some different events, have beers with APA, and people show up and just tell stories or whatever people want to do. I'll tell you a funny story. We're leaving the arena one night, and some fans cut us off. We know they're fans, but they cut us off. And when they did, they flipped us off or something like that. And so I did the thing that you're supposed to do. I hit them from behind and hit their car. And so they get out of the car, and me and Ron, there's 4 or 5 guys in this van. This is going to be a heck of a fight. So they get out of the car, me and Ron get out, but they see us, they go, "Hey, BA, how you doing?" They take pictures with us. So,
that's great.
Awesome.
So we took pictures with them. We did. We're all set to fight. They're like, "Hey, what APA?" Okay, we'll take pictures. That sounds better anyway.
That's right.
So JBL, before we let you go, is there any way that you would be willing to do one of your promos from when you were JBL on what's going to happen to the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend when they invade Austin?
Yeah, I think I can do one. Because listen, because you got to understand this. Oklahoma we need a wall in this country. We need a wall in this country, not between Texas and Mexico. We need a wall around Oklahoma to keep the Briscoes and those people out. Now, listen, they have really nice meth labs and bingo parlors, but for the most part, you got to keep those people out. Anybody has a car has left Oklahoma. Now, what does that got to do with Georgia? Absolutely nothing. I just love bashing Oklahoma. But this week, Texas and Georgia, Texas is going to roll them boys. I'm telling you, they're going to roll them boys. I love Kirby Smart. I love the Georgia Bulldogs. This is going to be a heck of a battle. But I will tell you this. If that little Ugga dog shows up one more time around Bevo, he's going to get his little ass kicked into Georgia.
That's awesome, man. So JBL,
I love when Bevo went after Ugga a few years ago. That was the greatest thing ever.
That's great.
Good stuff.
So JBL, look, man, thank you as always for taking time to join us. And before we let you go, the floor is all yours for anything else that you would like to say to our audience.
No, just enjoy being on with you guys. It's a lot of fun. You guys called. I get to talk a little bit about college football, which is always fun to me. I love college football, and this is a huge game this week. You got a big game in Tennessee. You got a big game in Texas. This is what's good about SEC football. I mean, people don't understand how good SEC football is, and these are just conference games right now. These are going to be playoff games probably later, but this is so much fun to watch college football. There's nothing like it. Gerald Briscoe and I and Ron Simmons, we love doing shows together in different places. We don't do much during the college football season because we want to watch college football so much.
Right.
So this is just a fun time of year for me. It's fun to be on with you guys, so thank you guys very much.
So JBL, we would love to catch up with you later on this season to get your take on the Longhorns as they move towards the annual rivalry game that is renewed with A&M the last weekend of the regular season.
I would love to see that. Are they playing in A&M or the College Station?
They are. Yes, it's college.
Yeah.
That is a tough place to play. That is tough. That 12th man down there is legit, man. Those guys, what a great program Texas A&M has had over the years.
Right. So, John, we will definitely catch up with you later on. Enjoy the Bahamas and drink an extra one for all of us, okay?
Will do. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you, John. Very grateful, sir.
So, guys, that is going to put a wrap on the Stingray Show this evening with JBL. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And right here for you guys on the podcast, if you do enjoy the podcast, please share it with your friends and family. And, of course, hit the like button as well, as we will continue to have amazing guests join us over the coming weeks and, of course, the coming years, because this is a staple of the Stingray Show of having big-time guests join us to talk about their careers and especially break down current events and current football and basketball and baseball games.